Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane. I'm with my co-host, Abby. We're both co-founders of Mastra. Today, we have a actually very jam-packed show. I say that a lot, but we do have a jam-packed show today. We'll be talking about the Mastra Hackathon that's going on right now. We'll be talking with someone from OSO. We'll be talking with Confident AI. We'll be talking with Smithery. And we're going to be doing AI news like we do every week. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? It's been great. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. I remember last week was jam-packed, so this will be great.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
It was good. Went to a Morgan Wallen concert on Friday. Hence the mustache. I haven't shaved it off yet. That's the next thing to do.
Dude, it's looking good.
It's getting big, dude.
It is looking good. And
I looked like my dad in the 90s.
did you get the cowboy hat? I really wanted you to wear a cowboy hat.
No, dude,
Oh.
it's been crazy. I would really wanted it, but no.
And if you are watching this live, you know, we do these every week. We're live on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and also we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. So maybe you're listening to this or watching this after the fact. If you know, we do share our screen a lot, so I always recommend the YouTube or the Spotify version so you can see the video. But we are audio as well, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're gonna love hearing our voices without any context, so it'll be great.
Yeah. But if you are watching this, you should go give us a review if you've watched a few shows before. We would appreciate that. That helps us a ton. Yeah. I didn't do too much this weekend. I was pretty much just kind of hanging out. Spent a little time with some family. Did a little work, you know.
How's the weather there in Sioux Falls?
It's been pretty nice, pretty mild actually. It was very hot for a while, and now it's kind of calmed down. A lot of rain and storms the last couple weeks though, but
nice.
Overall now it's been pretty good. A little rainy once in a while, but weather is pretty nice.
Similar to San Francisco. Last week it was raining a little bit or like foggy and shit. People who told me SF summer was the thing I have to wait for, I'm still waiting. Maybe the fall will be better.
I always thought the appeal of SF was that it was basically the same year round. Wasn't that supposed to be the appeal?
So it's shit year round?
I mean, you haven't sat through a Sioux Falls, South Dakota winter, so
no, that's true. I think I'll take the SF rain over the Sioux Falls winter for sure.
Yeah. Well, so we do have Shrita from the team who's going to be coming on here in a few minutes, but before she jumps on, anything else you wanted to talk about before we talk about the Mastra Hackathon?
Yeah, actually, there's one small thing. The current YC batch is going on, and I just got like a message from some people in the batch that it's the time where people go and meet PG. That's like the time that they're at. So I just had a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit thinking about that because we met him too, and so I guess it's kind of like the certain companies in the batch going to meet him are all like nervous and shit, and I just told them to don't be nervous because not that crazy. But I remember we were fucking nervous.
Yeah. So. Well, you go to you know, we stand outside and we're like, is this even the right house? We don't even know. And he's running behind because it's like, you know, he stacks all these meetings and we're like, I don't even know if this is the right house.
Yeah.
And we're like ringing the doorbell, knocking, no one's answering.
Dude.
So yeah. So someday we'll tell that whole story. But yeah, going to meet PG was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. So yeah, best of luck to everyone who's meeting him or has already met him.
Yeah, definitely good luck. Don't be too nervous. It's pretty chill. Just be yourself.
Yeah, not many people get to meet him, right? So
yeah, that's
the thing to focus on. But anyway, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, I mean, I see you got your copies. You know, if you want a copy of this before we get started, you can get a digital copy by just going to mastra.ai/book, and you can get a copy of The Principles of Building AI Agents, written by Sam, our other co-founder. It's been called the most popular book in SF.
Yeah, soon to be New York Times bestseller at this rate, honestly.
Dude, it's been wild the amount of people that have been every day. I have different, social media posts of someone literally it's just their hand holding the book.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's a thing. If you're listening and you have the book, you apparently just have to take a picture with your hand and post it. I think that's like a rite of passage now.
Yeah, it'll get views and we'll find you.
Yeah, and we will find you and we will share it because that is literally my feed is just people's hands holding the book.
Yeah, same. I'm just retweeting constantly, you know.
But yeah, let's bring on Shrita. Let's talk about the Mastra Hackathon and let's talk a little bit about Mastra Templates. Shrita, what's up?
Hey, what's up? What's up? How's it going, Shane? How's it going, Abby?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Are we? Is Abby's mustache last week's news? We're past that cycle.
Yeah, we just talked about it. You missed it.
Oh man,
We're just roasting it.
so
Yeah.
sad.
So Shrita, we've been doing this hackathon. So first of all, most people probably have seen multiple shows. They maybe have seen you. Maybe do a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. I'm Shrita. I help with content and I guess general marketing here at Mastra. I wrote a little piece, I think, for every about my role. So you can probably just search for Mastra on the every.to page and learn a little bit more about what I do. I think I was here last with Daniel, and we had a few interesting guests, including Rahul from Julius, who I believe was just actually on the TVPN show. So it's like, I don't know, it's really cool. Like, this is the live stream where it all starts, we get them here first and then they make it big.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're kingmakers over here,
Aspirational.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah, someday. But no, I helped with the first hackathon. I think we had a handful of learnings, and I'm particularly excited about the second hackathon. It's for the Mastra Templates initiative, and I think what's interesting here is that like you have a chance to literally define what people's getting started experience is with Mastra. Like, when else do you do a hackathon and actually have the potential for like live, real world impact? Like, this isn't just like a demo project that, like that is always cool to see your creativity and inspire people to build for their applications. But this time it's like, it's a true community effort. It's like, we're open source, we're pulling on our community, and it's like, here's your chance to really shape the future of, like, I don't know, the next hopeful like millions of developers who make the jump to AI engineering and use Mastra.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this time the hackathon is just going to be even better than last time because of those reasons, right? It's the idea that we want to share these templates with others. It's a chance for a lot of times I think people build hackathon projects for kind of two purposes. The first one is you're already building something, and so you might as well just enter it into a hackathon. Maybe you win a prize, right? I think that's pretty common. It's like you've already been working on a project, or it's a project where you want to just learn and you're going to probably throw it away. Maybe you use it sometime in the future, but it's kind of a throwaway project. The nice thing about this is that even if you are working on something, you might be able to pull out pieces of it and turn it into a Mastra template. So it's could be tangential to stuff you're already doing, but also it's not necessarily going to be thrown away because you can share your template with others, on social media. We're going to be listing a bunch of them on the Mastra website. So we're going to take, kind of the best ones and make sure that they're listed so others can find them. They're going to be, discoverable. So I think that it's nice that, people can now install your template and use it. And so it's kind of a way to give back. If you've been looking for a reason to get into open source and contribute to open source, and this is a good way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing I would add to that as well is that, for winning this hackathon, it's like, yes, of course, we want to see your creativity. And, if you're already building something for yourself and you just want to kind of refactor it into a template, that's great. I think this goes back to something you said, Shane, which is like sometimes the best submissions are not that complicated or crazy. And it's just building something that is like actually just useful, like the obvious thing that isn't really there. You can literally think to your specific role. Like, in my case, I do content. Okay, cool. Like, why don't I create a template, for creating branded like mid-journey images or something that are already fit within like the company brand guidelines, and like that's a very useful template that other companies can then use to actually make sure things are on brand, that we can like ship things efficiently. Maybe you don't have to be blocked by a designer. So those things that are obvious and maybe just seem like too simple or something, they actually can become the most useful ones. And then you have a great case for being on the community templates library, because those are things that people will want to use.
Yeah. We had a question, or John coming from LinkedIn says, link the GitHub repo. So I did post a link on the video to mastra.build if you want to learn more about all the whole hackathon, how you can be part of it, how you can sign up. If you're not already, go to mastra.build and you'll see all the information. Also, if you go to our GitHub repo, just search, Mastra GitHub, you'll get there. I'll post it on the screen here in a second. You can also see there's a templates folder in there where we have a bunch of example templates. You can go to the mastra.ai/templates page as well to see the existing templates that we have. And hopefully you will see a bunch more here in the next couple of weeks as we finish up this hackathon. And also John has a message saying, my team does high-level AI systems red team operations. We could really use some good security examples for templates. So maybe, maybe there's something there.
Agreed. Yeah, I guess a few other details about the hackathon. We have around 200 people who have signed up right now. The beauty of this is that, LLMs don't procrastinate, but you can, because you still have one full week to submit something. Submissions are only due Friday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. I think that's personally plenty of time. Like, Shane, Ubby, like, how long do you think it would take you guys to build something and submit something?
For a couple hours. So
Yeah.
I totally think if you spent a few hours, especially if you have any Mastra experience at all, you could put together a template. The best templates aren't necessarily the most complicated, because I always look at templates as a learning resource for people. So it could be just an example that someone could start with, or like a building block if you're building a project. So if it's too specific and too complex, that's almost a negative, because then it kind of locks people in. They got to change a bunch more from the template. But if you think of a template as just a collection of agents or workflows that could do some kind of interesting thing, well, then you could basically think of it as this would be an interesting building block for someone to start with or someone to learn from. I think those kind of make the best templates.
I also think it's worth pointing out some of the judges and some of the funny prizes. So some of my favorite prizes are Shane's favorite, which is always a wild card. So however Shane is feeling that day, that will determine who the winner is for that prize. And then the funniest one, which of course is going to be judged by Ubby. He's a tough nut to crack. So if you make him laugh, you deserve a prize for that. So those are some of my favorite prizes, but we also have, some more, I guess, practical prizes. So like best use of MCP, best use of a tool provider, best RAG template. Really, we have like 13 categories. So the odds are in your favor to potentially win something.
Yeah. What's the best way to see all the categories?
Okay, that is a great question. So we have a slideshow. So if you look at the hackathon slides that are linked from this page, which is just the URL mastra.build, I think if you go to slide 10, you'll be able to see all of the categories and which companies are judging those categories. So this slideshow really has, all the prizes, all the categories. It has the submission link. Really, it should be your like go-to resource for all information.
Cool. And we do have some great sponsors. So we have Smithery and Recall are both helping us with this. So we had Recall on last week, which was really cool. Smithery is coming on later today. So definitely interested to see more about what they're doing, but thanks to them for helping make this possible, and all of our great judges as well. So we got a bunch of judges, and yeah, I don't know, it's a pretty big operation putting all this together. So Shreed, I got to give you kudos for helping like wrangle everything to make this actually happen.
It's all good. I think it's worth pointing out that there's a Nintendo Switch 2 up for grabs. That's being sponsored by Smithery. And Shane, if you don't mind going to the prizes slide, I think it's worth saying that, like, hey, even if you don't win an Amazon gift card for these categories, I believe it's like earlier in the slide shows like the prize pool. Oh yeah, that one. Great. Yeah. We also have prizes that are just raffle prizes. So even if you submit something and we don't pick it as a winner, you could still win a Raspberry Pi, a mechanical keyboard, and a few other goodies.
And Mossam with the YouTube comment, procrastinated for too long, started working today. That's cool. You got plenty of time. You got all week. Yeah, I mean, I do think last hackathon too, these raffle prizes are really useful because you might just, even if you don't think your template is good enough to win, you might as well submit something because you got a shot. Any like realistic submission gets entered in. You know, can't be nothing, of course, but if you put some effort into it, you're in the prize. You got a chance.
And like if you live in, I think like US, Canada, Japan, England, like a handful of eligible countries, you're getting a copy of the book by default. We always hold it up. So yeah, that will be at your desk soon. Just all you got to do is just submit a template.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited. Are there any templates that either of you would like to see? And anything that, you know, if there's, we had quite a few people watching this, maybe they're considering what are some templates that would be really, that if they're not sure of an idea, they could maybe start working on. So I can go first while you all think of some. I put you on the spot. I think that one of the things that people sometimes struggle with is authentication. So I'm excited about people maybe submitting something around how do I have, almost like sometimes we call them like dynamic agents. How do I have my users have an individual instance of an agent that does something? It's all possible with Mastra, but it is kind of complicated to set all that up and to think through that, Abby, you might have a different memory and instance of the agent than I have, right? That has access to different things. And you can totally set that up with Mastra. A lot of people have, but we don't have a lot of templates for how to do that. A lot of great getting started guides. And so I'm hopefully looking forward to one or two good examples that would showcase this is at least a technique for setting that up, because I think that would help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And that's when we get questions about. Honestly, for me, it's like all the templates that are like we get questions about. So like if someone does deep research or how to do RAG pipelines and stuff, like it's one to read docs, but it's another to just get code for free. And so if you can provide that value, then that's dope.
Definitely. I think a lot of companies, as they grow, it makes sense for them to write case studies. So I would love seeing like a use of agent network where you have, like even before you go into your interview with your customer, maybe it does some research on them, helps you generate some specific questions to ask them. Maybe once you do your interview, you upload the link or a transcript, and like before it even like drafts something, it just goes through with you and is like, is this the right outline? Are these the right points to talk about? Helps you draft maybe an editor agent. So I don't know. I just really love agent network. I just want to build with that. Yeah.
I think another one, this is more personal for me, but I've done a lot with image generation and audio, text to speech. So anything with voice, anything with image gen, those I think are just cool examples. I think everyone thinks of Mastra as if you're just getting started with Mastra, you think of it like a chat agent, right? But it can do a lot more than that. So I'm very interested to see more of the multimodal types of examples, specifically with workflows and and all that. What we previously released, the idea of like this storybook generator. And so I think there's someone maybe working on taking that and expanding it into a template, but other things around that I think would be really cool as well. Selfishly, I just want cool agents that I can like show my kids, like, here's a cool story built by an agent. Let me tell it. Then I don't have to be as creative. I can, offshore some of the creativity to some kind of template. And then I'm the cool dad, because I have all these cool stories.
I don't know. I mean, I think the sky's the limit. Like, for personal productivity, personal life, it's like, why don't I have a nutritionist and personal trainer agent that are working together? And, why don't you even add like a stress management thing in there? Because like all of those things, relate to each other. So I don't know, like Shane, like I feel like there are endless use cases and possibilities here.
Yeah. Well, Shrita, do appreciate you coming on. I think Abhi and I are probably going to just poke around with some code. So if you are watching this, you should be watching the video version. Hopefully we're going to talk through how simple it is. Maybe we'll look at a template or two in our repo. So if you haven't looked at what a template is, you can see it's actually not too bad. But any parting words before?
I'll just say, the hackathon is just the beginning. I won't say too much, but there are so many more opportunities to get involved with Mastra. And we have some exciting stuff down the line. Maybe keep an eye on our Twitter later this week.
Yeah, we have a big launch or big announcement coming up here pretty soon. So excited about that. Can't share more quite yet, but that's going to be
you heard it here first to keep an eye out. That's all we can say.
Yeah, it's coming. All right, Shrita, thanks for stopping by, and good luck with the rest of the hackathon.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right, I'm excited for templates, man. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, I'm just excited that you can quickly get started, and it's not everyone getting started with Mastra starts with the same weather agent experience. Nothing wrong with it, but I think oftentimes if you're used to using frameworks, you kind of have an idea of what you want to build. So if you can get a little closer to that starting spot, I think it goes a long ways.
Yeah.
We do have a question in the chat coming from X. It's Vivek. He says, I had a question about agent network. How is it different from normal agent with tool call limit and has sub agents as a tool?
In the grand scheme of things, they're not different at all, and they're not, probably agent network won't exist in the future, but it was a way for us to experiment how we're going to do multi-agent systems. We use workflows under the hood, not necessarily using loops from other libraries. So it was a good experimental thing. We know how we want to do it. And so probably the next iteration of that will just be an agent. Like, it's not going to be anything new. But yeah, there's in the grand scheme of things, there's no difference. Right now, there is a difference because actually we built it. Agent network is better than just doing an agent by itself with different tools. It is experimental though, so maybe it's not for your use case. But yeah.
My hot take is it is better for most use cases because you don't have to think about all the details of wiring it up.
Yeah.
But if you want more control, of course, you can accomplish the same things and maybe have a little bit more, flexibility and control if you did it yourself and you controlled like when should the agent call the tool, you control the system prompt, you control the tool descriptions. So if you want that level of control, yes, just an agent with sub agents as tool calls is a way to get that level of control. If you want to be able to just wire up a network really quickly, and you still have control, of course, but maybe you don't have it's not quite to the bare metal that you have on the other version. Agent network's a good way to just get started.
Yeah, another like technical detail, like streaming within an agent call, streaming an agent within a tool call, you're gonna lose the stream data, just the nature of it. We're working on fixing that and making it better, just in general. But yeah, there's a reason why we built it. It's just you'll see soon enough, I guess.
And Marcelo also post a message on X. Mastra with React Native. Is it possible?
Anything is possible, Marcelo. Anything is possible. Using Mastra within React Native may be tough. There's a lot of server libraries. I don't necessarily know if they're compatible or can be like, browserfied or whatever, or how that works. But if you're using Mastra as a server, you could do whatever you want because that's just typical React Native development. We are looking into like how can you use it in these browser environments, but not right now. So.
Yeah, so I think it's very easy if you just want to use the Mastra client and you're hosting your agents somewhere else, with us on Mastra Cloud or in some other server provider, and then React Native is just the client into those agents. You can definitely make that happen pretty easily.
Yeah.
And we've seen people, I'm pretty sure I've seen a React Native example, but also like Electron and other things as well. Expo, yeah. Cool. Should we look at a template or two while we wait for our first guest? All right. So let's go and we're going to browse. We're just going to come at it fresh with fresh eyes. Cool. And you're going to pick a template, and then we will look at the code and review it together. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Here we are. We're in the Mastra Templates gallery. There's only 6 now. There's more to come, especially after this hackathon. We will be adding, obviously, community contributed templates to this page.
Let's look at the browser agent.
The browser agent. Okay. So browser agent uses BrowserBase's stagehand with Mastra. That way you can basically wire up and have it do browser actions for you. So let's take a look at the actual repo. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about a template is, it's listed as a public template, which is great, but it's just a pretty basic Mastra project. Has a source folder, has a README, has an environment.example file, and of course, as you'd expect, has a package.json, a tsconfig. Any other comments on first impressions? Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
So if we go into the source folder, if you've used Mastra at all, you'll not be surprised if there's a Mastra folder here. There's also a lib folder, which has some helper functions. Inside the Mastra folder, we have an agents folder, we have a tools folder, and we have this index.ts, which is going to, always have to basically export this Mastra class. And when you're actually building a Mastra project, you pretty much have flexibility to do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be in this Mastra folder. But with templates, we kind of enforce a little bit more structure, meaning if you want a template that's listed on the Mastra website, you need to kind of follow some basic conventions. And these conventions are listed in our contribution docs on the docs website. But it's pretty much basic conventions that you would get if you started a Mastra project. You don't have to follow those, of course, in your own projects. But if you want to make a template, we do ask that you follow this kind of agents folder, tools folder, an index file that exports the Mastra class out of the main source Mastra folder.
Yeah, we do want people, for templates especially, like you want the user to always be able to be familiar, right, within any template. Because, I know y'all be naming shit weird and stuff. I do it all the time. Like, you don't want your user to be like, what the fuck is this? What folder is stuff in? I'm not used to this code structure. So you got to make sure it's the same.
Okay, and if we go look in our agents folder, this is pretty simple. There's one agent. So we can look at our web agent here. I wonder if better zoom a click.
Yep.
So it's only 35 lines of code in here, so really not much. I think the most important thing is we're importing a couple tools, and we're giving those tools to an agent. You can see here we have a system prompt, which is pretty simple. If you were actually productionizing this, your system prompt would be significantly larger, right? But as a template, it's a good starting spot. It's using OpenAI's 4.0. What do you think? Should we look at the tools?
Yeah, let's look at the tools.
All right, so we go into the tools folder as you'd expect. One, file for each tool. Which one should we look at first?
Let's do the extract tool.
All right. Walk me through it.
Cool. Let's go some clicks though. Cool. So in this example, this template is creating its own tools, which is great. So this shows you that you could do whatever you want with Mastra with JavaScript. And in this case, we're using Stagehand. So here we have a create tool. This turns your code into a either tool compatible or workflow compatible code in Mastra. You give it ID, descriptions. Descriptions are super important, especially for agents. This one's pretty simple. And then input schema, that is pretty self-explanatory. And then you have an output schema. What is the tool results? In this case, like you could have so much unstructured data from this tool that you could just do any, and that's just the way it is. And then within it, we just call, perform web abstraction, which hits up Stagehand and then extracts data, which you'll see could be a bunch of shit in there.
Yeah, and it's just a function, right? So if you look, we're loading Stagehand in from the session. We're calling the Stagehand extract method with the instruction, and it extracts data from that web page. So it uses Stagehand under the hood, uses the library to basically just extract data from a site.
Yeah.
And all the other tools, are very similarly formatted, right? One is to navigate between pages. So, create tool, if we look down here, it's probably just going to call page.goto. So it's just navigating, right? So this is like a navigation tool. We have an act tool, which I'm assuming is by definition, like you're acting on the page. So you're clicking a link, clicking a button, filling out a form, something like that. So it performs some kind of action. And then the last tool is observe, which I believe is just to like look at the page and observe any elements that are on that page.
This is a great example of a template. Many reasons. One, this template shows something that many people want to do, which is have an agent navigate the web. Right? That's one thing. Two, it does it in a simple way because now you probably understand it's not that difficult to have an agent navigate the web in different ways. And then three, if you were going to build some type of browser agent type thing that's very specific for your use case, this is a great starting point because now you can edit this instructions. You could add more tools or maybe make it more specific. Like your browser tool knows the website that you're on because you're the one building that thing. So like that's why templates are super powerful.
So that's a template. Pretty basic, pretty simple in that case. We did have a question on, after we release this template, why don't we use the Stagehand MCP? And mainly because we based this on an example we built way before the Stagehand MCP was kind of finalized. We could use the MCP, but I also, in some case, I kind of like that it doesn't use the MCP because it shows an example of you can just write functions to have it do things. So
yeah,
we have the SDK for Stagehand. We can just call methods in the SDK. It would be a little easier maybe to use the MCP, and we might update it in the future to use the MCP because I think it'd be a little less code. But if there's not an MCP, as you can see, you can just write your own functions for tools.
And if it was like, let's say Stagehand was only in Python, then we would be using the MCP. But because we're in Nodeland and they have a library, why not?
Exactly.
You don't have to use MCP, by the way. You can do whatever the fuck you want. This is what I'm saying.
All right. And with that, we're going to move on. We have our first guest here.
Awesome. So
we're going to bring on our first guest of the day. We have Vijay. I'll have to ask how to pronounce that. From Oso. So,
hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Can you tell us a little bit? Just introduce yourself maybe, and talk a little bit about Oso. And I know Abhi and I are going to have lots of questions, and you probably want to show some stuff.
Absolutely. I guess the first answer is you got my name right the first time. It's Vijay. And then Oso is authorization as a service. And obviously with MCP agents and like new tools that can do things that at a scale that humans couldn't have done before. Authorization is just at the forefront of everyone's minds. Also, is generally just a tool for making it easy for building access control into any application. And in the AI space, we're exploring things anywhere from how to build secure authorized RAG to how to make the developer experience with OSO easier via things like the MCP.
Yeah, I know that auth has always been important, right? That I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know, but it seems like people are even more like scratching their head about it or more confused on how to think about auth when you have agents that either might do something on your behalf. Do they authenticate as you? Do they authenticate as some kind of additional being that has some different level of permissions? How does the approval of that happen? I mean, there's so much in the auth space. There always has been, but it feels like there's even more confusion and need for tools to help people with how to navigate auth in general with agents.
Absolutely, and it's easy to like come to simple conclusions like you have an agent acting on behalf of a user. They should just have the permissions that the user has and inherit those. But then you look at things like, let's say you're unleashing an agent on your AWS instance. Like, I'm going to give all of my engineers like unfettered access to our prod environment because they're engineers that I trust. But I wouldn't give an agent the same amount of access that I have access to because I don't want them taking down prod or something. And so it's not even a simple matter of inheriting the same permissions. And so there are things like kind of controlling what kinds of permissions you want them to have. But another really interesting space is kind of in RAG. There's this new problem coming up where it's kind of come up in the search space before. Companies like Glean, for example, are kind of built around how to control access to AI-based search over large quantities of data, where the data comes from third-party systems that have their own permissioning model as well. So if I want to set up, if I want to build an application that can have third-party data, like from Google Drive or from Notion or something that has its own access control model. And then I also want to be able to do RAG-based search to enable a chatbot or an agent to kind of answer questions based on that. It's kind of a tricky architectural problem to push the permissions down into that kind of semantic embedding retrieval-based search in order to give the chatbot access to only the context that it should have access to. And that's where OSO's local authorization kind of API comes into play. So I have a little bit of a demo that we can get into whenever you want.
Yeah. Any questions before we dive right into the demo, Abby?
I got 1,000 questions, but I guess we'll do the demo first, and then we'll go.
And then we'll have 1,001 questions, I'm sure.
Perfect. So local authorization is an API that OSO has had for quite a while. It's kind of an API for, I have like a kind of combo demo here. Can you see my screen all right?
Yeah, can you give us 1 or 2 clicks of zoom?
Yes. So
that's better, yeah.
This is our DSL for defining an authorization model. This is some sort of HR document organization application, for example. And so you might have departments within an organization, and then different departments own documents. So the document has a creator and a department. And we have these rules, like, let's say that if you're the manager of a department, then you're a reader on the document. And then if you're a reader on the document, then you can read the document. We don't need to go too far into this policy, but it's just an example of a simple app that somebody might build. And when you have a large number of documents in an embeddings database, so in this case, I'm actually using pgvector, and I'm using OpenAI's text embedding 3 large model to generate embeddings for these. And I have data in here of the nature of they belong to certain people, they belong to certain documents. For example, we have these 2 departments. Engineering department is ID 1, HR department is ID 2. And if I just spin up a little chatbot here, we made this little chatbot as like a way to demonstrate how you can use OSO and local authorization to kind of control access to what documents the chatbot is then fed as context. So let's say I'm authenticating as user Jane. And user Jane is a manager of the engineering department. Let's see something that she should be able to know about. So Jerry is also in engineering, and he's working on a project called The Great Escape. So let's ask the chatbot, what is Jerry working on? And that looks good. And then let's go ask something else. Karen is 49 years old, but Karen is in the HR department. So if we ask, how old is Karen? We don't have that information. Let's say I switch to a different user. Let's become George, who is the manager of the HR department. So if I'm George and I ask, what is Jerry working on? George is not able to access the information. He is able to access the fact that Jerry and Karen are dating, but that's because that is in a document that Jerry himself created. And then if I ask, how old is Karen? Karen's 49 years old. So I'll pull back the curtain of how that's implemented and why it's kind of a difficult problem to implement in the first place. You have all these documents that you have various levels of access to, and the architectural problem becomes, how do I store the information and query the information about who is able to access what document? This is a small example where I have 5 documents in my database, but of course, any real use case would have thousands or millions of documents. And it's not feasible to go ask an authorization system, hey, what are all the documents I have access to? Get back 500,000 IDs and plop that into a RAG search. It's also not feasible to store in your database a column on each document saying, here are the thousands of users that have access to this document. So you need to do something a bit more clever. And I was able to kind of piece this together with just the polar policy itself, which is completely agnostic of where the various pieces of data live, as well as the OSO local authorization feature, which we're using in this API call right here. I'm actually using the SQL Alchemy extension that OSO built for local authorization. So this actually makes it allows you to use local authorization with the exact same ergonomics of SQL Alchemy itself, which is a popular ORM for querying databases like Postgres with PG vectors. So here I'm doing my L2 distance search for content embeddings. And then what OSO allows you to do is you just add this .authorized filter. You train it in just like all of SQL Alchemy's other Fluent APIs, and you get back just the documents that the user is able to access. And I have this hooked up to a tool that we built called OSO Migrate. So you can actually dig into this and see, like, why was I allowed to, let's say we're Jerry, and I want to find out why was I allowed to read document 5. We have all these local facts, and then we also have server facts. And that's the key to this. If I were to go over to my MCP and ask, like, what has role facts are stored in OSO? This is an experimental MCP that we're building, and this allows a tool like Cursor to just query the OSO API directly. And you can see that we had a million, not literally a million, but we had a lot of facts about documents and user assignments and roles and stuff that we were able to answer the query with, but we're not actually storing all of them in OSO itself. In OSO, we're only storing department level access. But if I were to debug this query, I can see that user 3 has the read permission from this has role fact. That has role was granted from the document belonging to the department. And then this document belonging to the department was stored as a fact in OSO. But this has relation fact that was allowed to close the loop between the department and the document, that's the part where we get to cut down the amount of cardinality that we're actually communicating between the authorization service and the Postgres database by storing this in the Postgres database itself. And so that's where you have like any given user is going to have access to maybe like 5 departments at most, but each department might have thousands and thousands of documents. And OSO's local authorization kind of allows you to piece together these different sources of data in a single breath, and OSO figures out where to get each piece of data so that it can construct a really efficient query against the database that you're searching over to power a search like this.
That's pretty cool. We use OSO ourselves and use the local queries as well. I do wonder though, like this is in the point of view of a user that's doing something through their agent. So the agent is acting on behalf of them, right? So they're inheriting the role of whoever's asking the question and then applying those rules, right? That seems like a solved problem already though, right? Because this is not something new. Like this is essentially tool, like locking down tools. You could do it the same way through OSO as well, right? Like I only have access to these tools if the user's policy matches whatever document I have or whatever. I think more so the authorization problem comes down to like dynamic situations where you have to create a policy on the fly. Or like you're doing stuff on behalf of someone you need to identify first. Like you identify the person, then become them, then you have access to the things or whatever. Are y'all going in that direction where it's more agentic authorization?
Yeah, absolutely. Like these kinds of temporary access-based things are things that OSO kind of uniquely allows for, such as contextual information that in conjunction with this data that's stored in Postgres and stored in OSO, it's very common to kind of do on-the-fly access grants for situations like impersonation. Let's say like there's an old school example of this would be you're a customer support agent and you need to impersonate a user in order to see what the UI looks like from their end and do actions on their behalf. But as agents start to kind of take on roles like customer support, you can imagine using similar contextual information as well. When you are granting temporary access to an agent, you would also want to make sure to lock down the time frame by which you give the agent the access so that it kind of minimizes the blast radius. And so OSO has expiring access functionality that you can use. So if you were to insert this temporary information about when an agent was granted access, you can just configure in the policy saying that any agents that are granted access have access that expires after a certain expiration. And there are kind of two philosophies for kind of sharing permissions this way. One is called sharing, another one's called delegation. And we find that delegation tends to be what's safer to give agents access to. If you were to delegate access to an agent and then the person who delegated the access to that agent loses their access, the agent should not still have its access. And so those are the kinds of things that you can kind of piece together with a policy like Polar and then piece that together with kind of wherever the data needs to live.
What about roles specific for agents? So it's no delegation or sharing, it's actual roles. Are people doing that?
Yeah, I've seen so one thing that OSO allows for is modeling different types of actors. So it's not just a user is the only type of actor that can have whatever roles that they have. I've seen various of our customers have like a user actor meant for human access, and then also another actor type entirely that has its own rules and logic that pertain to it, that represents a machine for either API calls or applications or for agentic access, and allowing you to kind of share however much of logic you want to between the human users and the agents, while also getting to write logic that's specific to agents, such as maybe you only want to grant, maybe they might have the same role as a human, but that role grants fewer permissions, or you might grant agents entirely different roles altogether that come with their own kind of permissions depending on that.
Dude, it gets even more crazy when the agent OAuths into something and gets permissions from a third-party system too, right? Like, are y'all thinking about consolidating access like that? Or is it like that's going to be their shit and your stuff is whatever your policies control?
So that's one of the most interesting use cases we've come across. That kind of relates to the demo I just gave where this is a really common use case. The example I showed is like, this is all first-party data, but like a really common use case is doing the same kind of search over third-party data. And at that point, it's not even as simple as OAuthing in to getting the documents. Let's say an agent wants to get a Google Drive document and they want to give that information to the user that's using that. that's not as simple as just hitting the Google Drive API and like passing along an OAuth token on behalf of the user who's initiating the request. Because a lot of the time, you're not doing individual document requests. You're doing something like RAG, where all of these documents had to have been processed into embeddings, and they all got like kind of mixed into this big soup of a database that people have mixed access over. And so we've talked to multiple companies who have exactly that use case, where it's third-party data in a RAG-based system, and they basically, I've seen without OSO, I've seen combinations of either choosing not to build certain functionality because it's just hard to filter the permissions, or really inefficient ways of filtering this, such as the thing I mentioned earlier about where you do this pre-flight OAuth check for like every combination of user and document, and then store those IDs inside the database rows. Or you do your RAG search, you get back a bunch of potentially unauthorized documents, and then you have to loop through all of them and do the OAuth request for each one. And then maybe you get back none after that, and you have to go back to the database and get some more. So that's where it gets helpful to kind of have this relational data stored across like an authorization system and relate things within a database like PG Vector.
That is something that is interesting when you really think through the problem, because if you are just going out to the API and getting the data on the fly and just passing that into an agent, okay, maybe just passing your OAuth token and kind of basically passing that permission onto the agent is okay. But as soon as you get to the point of needing to sync data, which often happens, right? If you're building a AI email client, you're not just going to query the Gmail API every time. You're going to sync all those emails, and then you have to care about how's the permissioning work in that case, especially if you have teams and sharing, and you're building some kind of sales AI assistant, and you got to have the embeddings and figure out the chunking strategy, and then figure out how do you actually determine who accesses that. So yeah, I think auth gets more complicated when you actually are building real systems, not just querying data on the fly, but figuring out how you sync and store and then retrieve.
Absolutely. I've talked to companies building exactly these systems where there are complex like event-driven pipelines for synchronizing data from third-party APIs, and they've told me that the hardest part of those data pipelines, you would think the data pipelines are mostly oriented around like doing the embeddings, like hitting the LLM API and generating embeddings and storing that somewhere. But the thing that complicates it a lot is keeping track of the permission information. And then you have different bits of permission information that come in from various webhooks across the app surface. And then you have to do something really relational or like really intricate to actually apply the different pieces of information in the data pipeline, and then have like a processor later on in the pipeline to kind of resolve those permissions.
Dude, also sick, by the way. Just want to let you know. I think you already knew that. But dude, the thing is cool is like, what did Karpathy say, Shane, about layer? Was it level 1, level 2, level 3, or layer 1? What did he say? Like the different types of applications? You remember that shit?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, but I don't remember enough.
Apparently it was level 3 or level 2 or something. Like something like that. Anyway, like the authorization problem will always be a problem, no matter what software we're trying to build, right? We're doing agents now. Before we were doing microservices, where OSO stuff became really super helpful for us, like back in the day, which is not that long ago. But like, it's the same kind of problem in a different sense, right? Like a different like place right now. And it's just exactly what you said, Vijay. Like either people are not doing it because it's too hard. 2, they're just fucking, who cares? They're just YOLOing it and it has super bad performance, or they're not doing anything at all and they just don't care. So like that's just unauthenticated and unauthorized or completely free authorization. Just come on in. Are y'all seeing like the customers getting more evolved now? Like are people coming to y'all and being like, hey, we're finally at the place where we need to lock this shit down. Like we need your help?
Yeah, we've actually had multiple customers just start to use OSO for locking this kind of stuff down without even telling us, and then we found out about it afterwards. And yeah, like I don't know if I've seen a customer just like forget to lock something down. We've definitely had customers kind of start to think through their AI and come to us with like they just want like to understand how to architect this stuff so that they can fit permissions into the equation, because it's super easy to like go really far down a path of architecting like some fancy AI thing for like a prototype proof of concept capacity, and then you get to production, you realize the one thing that doesn't fit into your architecture at all is the permissioning story. And so we have customers doing like local authorization based filtering, or just doing kind of inefficient API queries to us where they get a bunch of stuff back and then like do the check to us. And then other people we've talked to, like who aren't using OSO yet, have like this kind of filter on what products they feel they're able to build, and then when they realize what OSO can kind of do, it kind of unlocks like new kind of AI based functionality.
Yeah, totally. That's it.
Awesome. Vijay, it's great kind of talking to you. Anything else that you want to mention kind of before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I showed a quick snippet of our MCP today in this demo, but we're hosting an MCP demo night in San Francisco tomorrow, co-hosting with Smithery, who also has an award-winning MCP server. So that's going to be fun. So anyone who's out there in San Francisco should come to the MCP demo night. I could share the link in the chat or something. I don't know how this works.
Drop it in and we'll share it.
I'll see you there tomorrow.
Cool. Looking forward to it. All right. Thanks both.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. See ya.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. And we'll share that link here for anyone watching. We'll drop it in there if you want to. It's kind of tough to type that in, but if you go to Luma,
You'll see it.
you will see it. MCP demo night tomorrow. Thanks, Vijay, and yeah, I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Thanks, Shane.
See ya.
All right, dude.
That was cool.
One guest down. Yeah, OSO's pretty cool. I haven't obviously dug into it as much as I know you have, but auth is never the worst part of any time I built an application is always just thinking through auth.
It's the worst, dude.
And then as you get more complex, it never gets easier. So having tools, especially now that we need to think through, again, the problem set hasn't changed. It's just authentication, but I think agents add a nice little wrinkle that makes it something else you have to think about.
Yeah, I would use OSO in a non-AI application as well as an AI one. So y'all should check them out.
Absolutely. All right. If you are watching this is AI Agents Hour. You might be watching this live. So if you are on X or YouTube or LinkedIn, you can just drop a comment. We will show it on the screen and talk about it, most likely. If you are watching this or listening to it after the fact on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a review. We like the 5-star reviews. If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, maybe just don't review. Please do that for us. But if you do want to give a 5-star review, we'd appreciate any of those reviews.
Yeah, no trolls. Just give us some.
It helps more people find out what we're doing, and we get even better guests coming on, and we are able to talk even more about building AI agents. So
yeah,
it gives us it also feeds our ego a little bit. I like to see the 5-star reviews like, hey, what we're doing matters.
Yeah, even though all the 5 stars we have are from ourselves,
Yeah, it's like hey, all our friends, go give us a 5-star review. No, we're having a good time though, and hopefully you are all as well. But we do want to bring on our next guest. So we are bringing on Jeff from Confident AI, who is also going to be a judge at the hackathon that's going on right now. Obviously, we talked with Shrita earlier about the Mastra Hackathon and the templates that are getting built. And we'll learn from Jeff what is Confident AI, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the hackathon, but more importantly, talk about what Jeff is doing and what Confident AI is doing. So Jeff, welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, guys. Long time no see.
Yeah, I haven't seen you since YC. How's it going?
Yeah, it's great. You guys in the Bay Area right now?
Yep, where I am.
Abby is. I will be next week, this time next week. Hey, we're going to do an in-person show next week, Abby. That would be cool.
Oh, yeah. Where are you at, Jeff?
Yeah.
Are you still in the Bay?
Yeah, we are. We're in downtown right now, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, how's Mastra doing?
Good.
Yeah, things
We
are
got the
going.
show now, so that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we are here. We're still shipping. We just keep shipping. But Jeff, for those obviously most of the people watching maybe haven't heard of you or don't know what Confident AI is. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and then also about Confident AI?
For sure. I'm a co-founder at Confident AI, and we do LM evals, and we open source a package that basically does pi tests for LM evaluation. And so you imagine you would plug our package in your CI/CD pipeline, you would write some test cases, and then our metrics will do some validation for you and then benchmark your application at any point in time. And these can be chatbots, agents, RAG, or just the LM themselves. So whatever you're building, we found a way to basically integrate with it and evaluate.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah, I know evals has been a hot topic just in general. We talk about it seems like almost every week or at least every other week where we're talking about, whether it's just news around people, like writing evals, how to write evals, struggling with evals, people not running evals. But I'm curious on so you've obviously talked to a lot of people, right? You talk to a lot of your customers, a lot of your users of the open source package. What are some of the things that they struggle with evals? And you have any like just general tips of when people are starting the process, like when should they start considering evals and how should they go about, actually building evals?
I think evals, it's something for products with product market fit. Um, the essence of evals really works when you have a data set that's static and it doesn't really change a lot. When you're still iterating your product, for example, it's really hard to even spend the time, let alone make your evals effective. And so the first pitfall that we see very often is people want to run these evals, but they might not have enough time dedicated for it. And that's really a blocker. And so, first struggle, really, the data set isn't there, or they're not sure kind of like what the data set should look like. And then the second thing, it's choosing the round metrics, which we can talk more about that later. But essentially, like having too many or too little metrics. For example, a startup shouldn't, in most cases, have, for example, safety metrics like bias, toxicity. They might have something more practical, and although it looks nice, it's best to not include them because otherwise you mess up your evals data, and it becomes really hard to look at instead of having one clear north star to iterate towards.
So it sounds like you're kind of suggesting that, yeah, because I know as part of like deep eval and confident AI, you have a bunch of kind of what we like to call like off the shelf evals, right? Things that might be interesting to add, but also I believe you still allow people to kind of write their own evals too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you think people balance between the two of like just choosing to use some of the off the shelf evals versus spending the time to write their own? And what would you recommend there?
Yeah, off-the-shelf evals are like generic for a very good reason. It's fast, it's easy to use, and they work really. What like we look at an AI app right now. There's really like two dimensions. The first dimension is the use case, and so for example, it might be for legal firms. It might be might be for like a hospital setting, chatbots, stuff like that. Whereas the second dimension, it's really about the architecture and the way it's built. And so these can be multi-turn, single-turn applications. These can be, for example, built on OpenAI's APIs or using a framework like Mastra. Um, and so the generic one works really good for the latter, the non-use case specific ones. And you really want like 2 to 3 evals centered around, for example, if you're building RAG, you might want to do some relevancy checks on the generator. You might want to do some like contextual checks on like the retriever. Whereas if you're building agent, you might want to employ some component level evals on each step of the way. And so these are generic. Recommend around 2 to 3 of them, and then it comes to like the use case ones. For the use case specific ones, those are like the custom evals where you really want to, for example, have some custom criteria and then evaluate against those. And it's really the combination of both that people always use. And there are actually more custom evals being ran in production right now than the generic ones.
Good. Because off-the-shelf evals, like, they don't really, in my opinion, they don't really do anything for you other than the second problem space, which doesn't really matter if you're in the PMF territory. Who cares about your? I mean, for example, the law firm case, like maybe bias does matter, but it's not going to be the off-the-shelf bias. It's going to be the one that you wrote that is about how your company deals with bias, as opposed
For
to
sure,
some
yeah.
law, right? So
Yeah, I mean, people just also like to write their own evals a lot more. But yeah, totally true. I think off the shelf evals are less and less useful, and they're moving more into custom evals, and then how to customize that and etc.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the idea behind off the shelf evals is a good one, right? Like people want to get started quickly. They want to be able to just like see some data. And so maybe there's some usefulness to like understand how evals works. And maybe there's one or two that makes sense for you. But I do think the real value, like the business value, is in the custom evals, right? Like spending a little time and figuring out what's the measure that you care about the most. How do you measure that? And then how do you track it over time, right? I think those are kind of much more important.
Yeah, for
Jeff, you were
sure. And
saying.
yeah,
Go
I was gonna say they just correlate with business ROIs a lot more, and so it's also much more convincing for even like non-technical folks on the team to get started with, and they can also contribute to it. Like they can write it in everyday English, and so that's a big plus as well.
Do you have these problems with users that have like a chicken and egg situation where, let's say they're coming from a different industry, like that was already existed, like the law, let's use the law example. Like there is
Yeah.
a law firm that exists or whatever. Now they understand how their business works. It's been running for 20 years, but they want to have an agent. So they build one somehow. But under your criteria right now, they don't have any data sets yet. But they could probably still eval it though, right? Like they don't necessarily need a data set. They could take any new production trace that comes in and start evaling it. So like, what's the right time for you to actually say, oh shit, I have a data set now, let me sit down and do this? Or is it like you're just always trying to think about doing it as the train is running?
I think there's really two approaches, and that's like a great question because the first scenario is when they already have the data set. Maybe they have a dedicated team working on it, like some QA's teams and some bigger companies, for example, and those are really easy to get started with. For those folks that are um, trying to like still curate their data sets, we offer them like a tool to basically monitor their AI apps, like tracing and production, and then we can just enable the evals for all the different steps. And then we just intelligently select the points that we think they should add it to their data set, and then they can just approve it in the end. And so that's what we recommend right now for folks that we think might not have as much time as we hope to kind of get started to sit down and curate these data sets. Um, it's it might not be as robust as if you were to dedicate like someone full time working on this, but it's definitely a really great method just to get started with something, and then once you have the data set in, you can work with it as you go along.
Yeah. Do any of your sorry, this is my last question. Do any of
Yeah.
your customers, like, I feel like sometimes evals are like an enterprise initiative rather than for actually like improving your AI. Do you get companies that come up to you and be like, "Hey, I need like 10 off the shelf evals so I can like check this box for my AI initiative"?
We certainly do get those. They're just not really great customers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
We know the type as well.
Yeah.
You see them in the first call, the first 5 minutes. You can.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, Jeff, we appreciate you coming on. And so you are judging the evals category of the Mastra.build templates hackathon. So definitely excited to see what you think of some of the people that are building with evals. I know I talked to at least one person who's building some kind of template that's trying to show off how evals work. So definitely looking for your takes there. Anything else? How can people connect with you or follow what you are all doing?
Well, let me link our refill. I think that's the best way to follow what we're doing. All our socials are there. Do you know where I should paste it?
Drop
Just
it if you
paste
drop it in the private
chat.
chat. Yep, I got
Yep.
it. So I'll drop it in. If you're watching this on YouTube live, you'll see it. Otherwise, you look at the screen right now. You'll see it. So it's Deep Eval by Confident AI. So go give them a star. Give
Give 'em
them
a
some
star.
love.
Yeah, give it a star. It's great.
All right, Jeff. Well, appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, good
Yep,
seeing you, man.
thanks.
Yeah,
Appreciate
see
it.
ya.
Thanks.
All right, dude. Evals. It's a thing a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, they're living and breathing it too, which is dope.
Yeah. Well, we get the show must go on. Our next guest is already here. We just rapid fire guests today, which is great.
Ooh.
So this one is someone who's been on before, but slightly different this time around.
He's wearing a new jersey this time.
Yeah, he's playing. Yeah, he's definitely wearing a different jersey. I like that. All right, Annie, welcome.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So, all right, people who have been following us for a while have probably seen your face before. We actually just talked about Stagehand earlier when we were showing our browser agent template, and it uses Stagehand under the hood. So I guess maybe can you give everyone a little background?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was at BrowserBase previously. We built Stagehand, which was basically the goal of that was that BrowserBase is going to be the browser infrastructure, and we just wanted to provide tools for agents that can control a browser, right? So our whole hypothesis was that someone's going to build an agent that's going to look at a screenshot and determine like, oh, in order to order a pizza, I must click this button. And that agent shouldn't have to worry about, writing the right playwright code and choosing the right DOM selector. That you just kind of like offload that to a different tool selector or a tool executor. And so Stagehand was that tool executor. And so, yeah, I think like, when MCP came out, it was such a hand in glove fit, right? Because, we were building tools for agents and MCP was like, here's how you expose tools to agents. And so, yeah, we were like pretty early in the MCP space. And then, frankly, like, over time, people started complaining about our MCP server. They were like, oh, it doesn't work in these situations. And, like I tried it in Claude, it works fine, but in Cursor, it doesn't. And, I was like, damn, like this is cool-ish feedback, but the only KPI we have right now is GitHub stars, which is just like, I don't know how people are actually using it, what they're using it for, how like valuable is this feedback in the context of like product roadmap. And so I realized like, okay, like MCP is pretty useful, but we're definitely not the only ones facing this issue. And so that's what really compelled me to build Smithery, kind of like, MCP observability without a platform to like make MCP itself bigger wouldn't stand alone on its own. So we wanted to basically build an MCP platform with observability as like a first-class citizen. So here we are.
We should have the TBPN trade board thing that they have. And,
Traded.
Well, not really traded. You're a co-founder, right?
Yeah, not traded, but also like moved on. Just like to
it's like made my own team. Yeah.
It's like help start a new franchise.
Yeah, the new franchise. Tell us the story, like how you and Henry like linked up.
Yeah, I think like I mentioned, we were pretty like active in the MCP space. We had a couple events that we'd go to for MCP stuff. We'd both be speaking at the same events, and then we just kept trading notes. Also, BrowserBase was an early design partner. I think the way I first met Henry was like just a couple weeks after MCP came out. Henry had built Smithery, and he was like, "Hey, deploy the BrowserBase MCP server on Smithery." And we were like, okay, you built like in a marketplace for like the 20 MCP servers out there? Like, sure, right? And I remember like even you guys at the time, you had like the MCP registry. Yeah. And it was kind of like this like kind of, gag. And so, we were like, sure, fine, listen to Smithery. And then quickly, as we were running blind and we didn't have any KPIs besides GitHub stars, our KPI became like usage on Smithery, which is kind of like a really interesting, paradigm shift, right? And it was only like one number, and that number could only go up because it was just usage. And so, yeah, that's how we met. I think like Henry and I kept trading notes about like, we were early design partners. Like BrowserBase is a big enough logo to kind of help Smithery set direction too. So just trading notes. And then we realized that, okay, there's probably like quite a bit of overlap here that might make sense for me to just kind of help set direction of Smithery itself.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
How long you been there now?
A couple months. So like since like Henry and I think we started talking like May, and I think officially made the leap in July.
Nice. So what's new for Smithery? Or like now that he has more firepower, what are y'all gonna go take over the world with?
Okay, so like fundamentally, I think I was talking to someone at DeepMind a couple weeks ago, and he was kind of the opinion that SaaS itself is like not worth building. And he was basically saying like, oh, you're just going to tell an agent, build me Salesforce. And then this big, huge model is going to say, okay, I'm going to build you the front end, the back end, like everything. You don't need any other services. The model can just do everything for you on this like remote cloud instance. And I was like, damn, like that's really scary. Like we're all just doomed. But I think like what saved me from that paralysis was rather just like, I'm a software engineer, and 3 years ago, before AI and everything, if I had to set up a database, I wouldn't just go straight up, like set up an EC2 instance, like set up Postgres on that EC2 instance. Like I could do that, but at what cost and why? And I think, even as a human who's capable of doing these things, it would just make my life so much easier if I could just kind of offload that to like a Supabase or a Neon. And so I think like the future that we're headed towards is one in which, you can kind of give Claude Code or some general agent something like, here's $20, here's $30, go build me Salesforce. And that agent will basically like offload, okay, I need a front end, a back end, and infrastructure. And it's going to say, okay, front end agent, here's $10, go build out the front end. Back end agent, here's $10, infrastructure agent, here's $10. And then these like kind of general, like specialized agents will take this task of like building out a front end, and then they'll say like, okay, do we use Vercel or Cloudflare? And then from there, it's going to like offload the actual building task to like a Next.js agent, right? So all this being said, I think like there's a huge gap for kind of the orchestration of all of these generalized to specialized agents. And it's very akin to like regular software engineering, where, all of SaaS is just this service-oriented architecture, where you just, kind of hand off API requests to more specialized services. And I think the same could be, applied to AI itself. And I think we're just going to help like build this new AI service ecosystem.
Nice. So like Smithery would have a bunch of MCP servers that people could like, offload certain things to dynamically, maybe, or whatever. That makes a lot of sense.
So we have the concept of like a profile. So you can have like your work profile, your personal profile, and all these have kind of like managed connections and everything for you. So that way you don't have to like log into Notion on like 10 different clients. You could just, save all your config in Smithery and then log into Smithery on your different clients.
Yeah, that's super cool. I saw you guys just release like an OAuth MCP support or something like that. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, so now all of our MCP servers are fully OAuth compatible, which is super nice, because earlier you had to like kind of copy paste API keys, which you still kind of have to do. I think the biggest problem with MCP is that like there is one spec and like nobody actually follows the full spec. And so you kind of run into this problem of, like kind of like what WhatsApp did, where, they had to support like the most legacy versions of Android because they were just trying to expand accessibility to messaging in general. So that's kind of like our kind of problem to solve as well. We kind of want like we want to work on any MCP client, even, Claude Desktop, which surprisingly has kind of like the worst support for MCP.
Yeah, why is that? Yeah. We've noticed the same thing. It's like you created MCP. You should have the best support. There should be support, day zero support in Claude Desktop for everything, but that is not the case. They're obviously different teams.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I think, we're lucky enough to be on like the MCP steering committee as well. And it's just, I think when you have something very community driven, you end up kind of like the DMV, where there's no reason to be efficient. I think that we are trying to kind of just be that brand, like the neutral layer, across the hyperscalers, across the infra providers, kind of just being the company that kind of brings efficiency to MCP, kind of just, helps people actually use it a lot easier. We actually have, so we're shipping this week. We have observability in beta. Let me show you actually. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
this is a super sneak peek. I'm literally vibe coding this right
now. We always love live demos.
Live vibe demos. Let's check this out. Cool. So this is, as you can see, very, very bare bones. But what we have here is like a leaderboard of kind of what clients people are using over time, right? So I mentioned we're super, neutral across all the clients and all the hyperscalers. And like, you can see here, like how many people are using Cursor, how many people are using Claude Code or Windsurf. You can see here, the biggest usage is actually, Tray actually has surprising usage here over Windsurf even.
Wow.
I didn't really realize that. I think, we have a lot of people in kind of like East Asia kind of using Tray, and there's like another one that was surprised. There's a lot of MCP clients here that aren't even like English. But I was kind of shocked by that, right? I think what's also really kind of not the end all be all is that Cursor is still far and away ahead of Claude Code. So, it's not the end of Cursor or anything. But yeah, this is just the distinct users that, have used an MCP server in the last year, at least like started a session that has an MCP server in the last 24 hours. And then we also have, if you are a server developer, I'll show you guys our Notion MCP. This is fully open source. Shoot, I need to pull changes from main. Anyway, point being, we now have better observability that you can basically see like, who's using your server over the last 24 hours. What do they do? How do I stop sharing my screen?
There should be a stop button somewhere.
Let's try.
I got it for you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. Yeah. The point being, yeah, like we have like, a lot better, all the stuff that I was complaining about where I was like, I don't know how people are using my server, how many people are using my server, what clients are they using it on, where is it breaking, stuff like that. We're starting to actually kind of surface that back to developers to kind of hold the big players accountable for building good software.
When you're building a marketplace like this, are people like asking y'all like what are like the blessed tools? Like which are the blessed servers? Like I only want to use the one that Henry said was okay. Like, is that like stuff that's happening?
100%. It's like, it's pretty interesting too. Like, because we're a fully open marketplace, we have like 7 different implementations of the Notion MCP. And so, yeah, like what's weird is also that the original Notion MCP server wasn't that good, which is why we actually built our own Smithery Notion MCP. And that we found works better. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Because like, I think with the open marketplace, you also kind of get to hold the big players accountable, and you get to say like, hey, like the MCP server that you built kind of sucks. And I think that, like a lot of people just build MCP servers to have an MCP server. And so they don't need to kind of like make it good. And so I think that's like, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Like incentivize more open source MCP servers such that, if the big players have an MCP server that doesn't work, you could just update the open source one and kind of like hold them accountable. But
yeah,
which is really interesting because you can't build a API for Notion, right? You can't do that, but you can build an MCP server that's good that uses their API, right? And I think typically at one point APIs were people just built them to build them, right? And they were not very well maintained, but over time they had to people wanted to use them, and so they had to make them better. But now that they have good APIs, or most places have relatively good APIs, it kind of opens the door for anyone to build an MCP server using that API. And so whether you're building it just for yourself or you're building it to share with others because you think your implementation, your tool descriptions, whatever, are better fit, you have a better collection of tools using the API, you can kind of just build and release your own.
Yeah, but this is the problem I've seen. This is history repeating itself for like the 5,000th time. Like we've seen this ourselves in the plugin, like the tragedy of the plugin ecosystem, where people, when technology proliferates, people want to do the same thing. Like you got a Notion, I got a Notion, everyone got a Notion, and then we're humans, so like we're not always consistent in maintenance of these things that we put out in the world. They degrade. Users then, because this technology is so popular, they picked the wrong Notion server, and now they're in production issues later on. And then it always goes back to the authors. They're like, hey, how come you didn't have, and we had this one, back in the day, Gatsby had 2 Shopify plugins, 2 WordPress plugins, that they were always in contention because the authors of the other one were like, hey, like you guys move too slow on supporting Shopify. It's like, yeah, dude, we're not fucking Shopify. Like we're like building a whole plugin ecosystem. Like obviously we're not focused on this. Anyway, sorry, I digress. It just always goes back to the people who own the marketplace have to have some type of judgment. This shit's good. This is not good, because people want to blame you when it goes wrong, because everyone needs someone to blame. So I think y'all should get ahead of it and just start christening things from the beginning, because they're already going to blame you at the end. Might as well just take a new strategy and say, these are the sick MCPs, and it could be all yours.
That's actually kind of like what we have to some degree. Like I mentioned, we forked the Notion MCP server. It's just tricky with like established brands because it's like, yeah, I don't want to like go 1v1 Notion. But I think the bigger existential risk is, I think, like, and also to be fair, it's not our responsibility to kind of make every existing service MCP friendly. I think, like, ChatGPT, for example, when it first came out, there was no ChatGPT app, and there were like 100 different ChatGPT apps in the App Store. But nobody used those apps because I was like, I'm just going to wait for the official one to come out and be good, right? And so I think what we want to do in the meantime is kind of just make the existing MCP servers that are kind of out there really good, and incentivize people to actually build good MCP servers, such that when they build better first-party MCP servers, they're kind of up to this standard. I think that what's interesting is like the risk to Notion is not like someone building a better third-party Notion MCP server. The risk is more that there is going to be a more AI native note-taking platform that is just better for people to use and has better reach. Kind of like what Linear itself did to Jira. If someone builds a better AI native task management platform, that could basically overtake the Linear MCP server. So I think we want to just facilitate this kind of like AI native marketplace and help people build more AI native apps, right? So
yeah, I fully expect that over time, it's just natural. It kind of expands and then it condenses, right? It starts small, it expands, and then it'll condense around the good MCP servers. And hopefully those good MCP servers are built by the parties themselves, right? So they're first party support, they're maintained over time. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes the third party MCP server is just going to be better because they actually care, and the first party actually doesn't care about their MCP server. And maybe that means they lose long term as a product, or maybe not. What time will tell. But I think that I guess you're kind of there for the ride, right? You're going to provide the ability for all these servers to get there. You're going to provide the observability so for people to determine what's used and what's the best. And maybe, I don't know if you have ratings or whatever. And then over time, it's the market will consolidate on the winners. And I don't think you can necessarily fight that. All you can do is provide the tools to help people make those decisions, but also help others if they think theirs is better, get theirs out there. And I think that's the challenge,
100%.
but also the opportunity of a marketplace.
I think what's also really cool here about like new marketplaces and new platforms in general is kind of like we don't know the use cases yet, right? Like it's just this brand new platform. A lot of people aren't using it. I think like when the iPad came out, right? Like that's probably one of the first major technology shifts that I was really alive enough to remember. And I remember like when it came out, people were like, this isn't a phone, this isn't a laptop, kind of like, what is it, right? Like, why would I buy this? I don't think in 2010 people could have foreseen like every POS system everywhere is an iPad. I think it's like the last use case people imagine, but it's like the most prevalent.
Or it's basically
now, right?
your dash on your car in many cases too, right? It's basically what it is.
And I think like there's so many use cases that we can't even fathom, right? Like the other example I like to draw is like, when the App Store itself again came out, right? People, I guess you could make the argument, why would you need an app when you could have a mobile-friendly website? There's Cordova, there's PhoneGap, where you could kind of just port your website into like this iframe rendered as an app. And then, like Instagram came out and they were like, we're an app. We don't even have a website. And look what happened to that, right? TikTok, Vine, like all these things are just platform native and they don't really need an analog. And I think that's kind of like what I want to enable. And I have no idea what those actually are yet. I think we're still in the age of, when the iPhone first came out and there were like fart apps, like that's kind of like where we are.
It would be wild to see an MCP server whose whole code base is for the MCP server.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So you're predicting. So Annie, your prediction is that there's going to be just MCP servers that maybe don't even have websites, or maybe the website is just to like point people to the MCP servers. Like it's just a landing page that says, "Hey, we're an MCP server. Here's how you get it. Go here."
This actually literally happened a couple weeks ago. There was this product that launched on Product Hunt. They made it to top 10, and it was called Seekeasy, SEEKEASY, and like some Google engineers really cool. It was just like an AI enabled Yelp. So you could say, you know, like, hey, what are some good restaurants in like the Flatiron district of New York? And it would respond with like, these influencers in New York think that these restaurants are really good. And it was just an MCP server as a service. And exactly what you're saying is exactly what happened. They didn't post their landing page on Product Hunt. They posted a link to the Smithery server
Wow.
page where people can see like, oh, what tools are accessible? You know, like how do I kind of interact with the server? I thought that's like exactly what we're trying to enable. Like SeekEasy is not an API. It's not an existing app or website. I think they have an app now, but it was just fully MCP server first, AI native first, and then see what sticks.
Nice.
So yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Like I wonder what more is going to come out that's like, you know, the next Instagram or the next, you know, like generation defining app.
Well, good luck with building it. Shit, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much,
Yeah.
guys.
Come back
Yeah.
on, you know, give us updates along the way. Definitely if you got big launches, you know, things that you're doing. Our audience, you know, and, you know, selfishly, Abby and myself, we're obviously very interested in MCP. We do a lot with MCP, and we're very excited too that you're sponsoring the hackathon that's going on now. We talked about it earlier in the show. You are giving away a Nintendo Switch to the best use of
Yes, sir.
MCP. Are you the one that's judging? You're the judge, right?
Yeah, I shall be.
All right.
Yeah.
So you want to see the best usage of Smithery, and go get that Switch. For those of you
Best MCP.
listening, like you can win yourself a Nintendo Switch. That would be pretty sick.
Hell yeah. Well, can't wait, guys. Thanks so much for
course.
having a sponsor. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Like, I'm glad you're at another company that we really like. So
Yeah, you just went from one
to the other.
yeah one friend to another friend. All right.
Oh yeah, thanks you guys for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me on your website as well. Like every time I go to Mastra.ai, I see that tweet from me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
That's what we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. See ya.
See you guys.
Yeah. Dude, the last 2 episodes have been wild, man. Just everyone's cool and
Yeah.
everyone's working on crazy things. It's dope.
Yeah, we're getting, obviously, you know, like we're getting more and more guests that want to be on, which is great. So if you are watching this, if you want to be on, if you're doing something interesting in AI, come tell us about it. We like having interesting guests that are doing interesting things.
Yeah. The more interesting people we know, the better.
Yeah.
Let's do a recap, I guess, for everyone before we get into the news. What we talked about today.
Yeah.
I'll try it. I haven't done it.
I was gonna say, you want to do it? Let's do it.
Dude,
Hit me with it.
All right. So today, we started the show with a hackathon update. We had Shrita come on. We talked about, you know, what the hackathon prizes are, a lot of people who are judging, what we're looking for, and what we kind of want to see. We looked at some code from the browser agent, which is using Stagehand, which kind of connected the whole episode together, which is cool. Then we talked to Oso about authorization, especially in RAG-based systems like they were showing. We're also users of Oso. That was cool. Confident AI. Our friend Jeff from YC. He's also a judge for the hackathon. Talked about deep eval, just different eval things that we're talking about. I think anyone who's doing eval should go listen to that segment. Thought it was pretty interesting. Then we had the homies from Smithery. That was an interesting ass conversation. Like, I don't even know how we talked about all that, but it was just flowing. We talked about, honestly, just go watch that segment again too. Like, I can't even repeat it. It's just interesting stuff.
Yeah, cool to see all the observability coming into MCP marketplaces, thinking about what MCP as a form factor, you know, could be.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, obviously, I think we're still figuring it out, and that's what's kind of exciting.
Which reminds me, I want to write a blog post about the tragedy of plugin systems. So I'm going to write a note for myself to do that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to, in some level, be facing that again with templates, right?
Exactly.
So it's like one of those things. It's a necessary evil that you have to go through if you want to provide value, I think, because I do think those systems, the plugin system or a MCP marketplace or a template, you know, directory, provides value to people, but they're challenging to like regulate and like make sure that the best ones show up and the bad ones, you know, people don't blame you when they don't work, which they will, even if they're contributed by someone else. So it is a challenge, but I do think a worthwhile challenge, you know, if you do have users that can get benefits from it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited to see how this goes. Oh, we got a little comment. Justin. Nice. Familiar name. Evals for sure important. Just had a real example of my Hackathon V2 template. Thought I made a great update. Nope.
All right.
That's usually how it goes, dude.
Yeah. Well, good to see Justin's working on something for this hackathon.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I don't know, I'm excited for Friday to start seeing all, obviously see all the submissions come in. And then next week, the plan is we're going to talk about it. So next week's show, we're going to announce, showcase all the winners from the hackathon. We will talk about, who got what prizes. We will showcase them and just kind of talk through what the next steps are for templates, for the hackathon results, all that. Well, dude, should we do some news?
It's time for the news.
We gotta keep on going.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be kind of a low news day, and I don't think it's too. Yeah, there's nothing too major that came out over the week, but some really good stuff to talk about. The first I will share, which is I thought just kind of funny. I don't know. Just a casual observation from Cloudflare. This tweet caught a lot of people's attention. Perplexity is repeatedly modifying their user agent and changing IPs and ASNs to hide their crawling activity, in direct conflict with explicit no-call preferences expressed by websites.
Dang, shots fired.
They're calling it out. They got a whole blog post on it, just throwing Perplexity under the bus. And, it's the drama. There's always some kind of drama going on every week, and this seems to be it.
I always find it interesting that Cloudflare is always in these dramas. Just want to throw that out there. No hate on anybody, though.
Yeah. No shade thrown, but Cloudflare, you're always in it.
Quacks like a duck.
Yeah,
that's a good one though. The thing is, Arvind probably doesn't give or Arvind Srinivas. I shouldn't say like I fucking know him. Arvind Srinivas probably doesn't give a fuck. That guy's on a mission.
Yeah, I don't feel like we know him, but we did see him, so I feel like we know him a little bit. I get that vibe, right? Yeah. Like he definitely gave off that vibe that he's like, yeah, all right.
Dude, I remember during YC when he talked to us, he was like, oh yeah, I didn't get into YC, but it all worked out anyway. It started off like,
yeah, you guys kind of threw YC under the bus too. Yeah, he doesn't care. Yeah, seems like he no F's given from him. At least it seems that way. So we will see. If I doubt there's any kind of official response or anything, but I thought that was an interesting tidbit of information. Do with it what you want, but Cloudflare's in it. Cloudflare finds a way to make it into the news, though.
That's a good thing.
So maybe that's what their plan is. Like they're gonna stir up some controversy, and then they keep on top of mind of people. So the next thing we want to talk about, AI SDK v5 finally launched after we've been talking about it. It feels like for months we've been kind of previewing the all the things that were coming up with it. We're sharing a bunch of tweets, but it officially launched last week sometime. I don't remember the exact day, but it's here. It's live.
Yeah, it was like last Thursday or something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Congrats to the AI SDK team. Like, good for y'all. Yeah, great. The good things about V5 over V4, there's a lot of structure, like more structure to the data stream protocol, which will allow you to write better UIs and more feature-rich UIs from your agents. You can store metadata on these messages and stuff like that. Outside of that, everything relatively is the same. There are just new message formats, new data structures that didn't exist before. Definitely makes our lives a little bit more complicated, but yeah, that's cool. In terms of our V5 support, we have V5 support in a snapshot branches. Snapshot branches are like beta branches that we give out. I would say that branch is a breaking change, embracing V5 as a breaking change. And you're more than welcome to start using it, and if you want to use it that way. We're currently working on a different strategy, so we don't have to break everyone who wants to use V5 versus V4. And so that we have an alternative path that we're looking at there. So it should be pretty seamless to use wherever you're at, V4, V5, V6, whatever the fuck's going on. So yeah, stay tuned from our part. I know it just came out, but some patience will be required because we have some other things cooking that are along the same lines.
Yeah. Soon, but yeah, not imminent. Not today or tomorrow, but in the matter of I would say what a week or two.
Yeah, like a week or two.
Yeah. So a little patience, but our goal is to make your lives easier. So if you want to use it, you don't have to worry about doing a big breaking change. And so we're trying to take a little bit of caution and just make sure we do it right.
Yeah.
But
also, the thing for us that I want to point out is we have a surface area of all our users, as well as integrations into Mastra that are expecting a V4 format. And that is also a coordination effort from our perspective, because we are friends with a bunch of different libraries. We're not going to just break shit on them and say, hey, you got good luck, bro. So we want to do something that allows their stuff to continue working. We just had a Copilot kit thing in person last week. We have one next week.
we have a workshop with Copilot Kit on Wednesday. So check that out.
Imagine we broke shit, then we had to get everything ready for the workshop. No, thank you. That's so much stress as it is. So so more to come.
Yeah, we want to make sure we are able to keep working for everybody. So a little, I have heard though, I haven't obviously, I don't have any AI SDK just on their own projects, but I've heard that the upgrade path is relatively easy. It hasn't been too bad for people. A few people mentioned there's maybe some minor type issues or things they ran into, but overall, I've heard relatively easy upgrade path. So if you are using it, and for some reason you're not using Mastra, should be pretty easy of an upgrade, but definitely read the docs and your mileage, of course, is going to vary, but that does seem to be pretty simple.
It'll be not good if you're using that. They used to have this thing called Chat Store V1 or Message Store, which they broke during V4. So if you're still on that shit, you're gonna have a tough time because you have to migrate a database and all that. Actually, their recommendation was to delete everything and start over. I don't know if that's gonna work for you. Probably not. Which is why you should do something like Mastra, because then it's our problem, not yours. So
we provide the more seamless upgrade. So we do got a comment, Jelp. Hey all, I realized the hackathon finishes this Friday and I didn't start anything. Well, the good news is you have until Friday. You got time. There's still time.
Get on it.
Yeah, get on it. You got time. Come into our Discord. Let us know what you're building, and if you have questions. I don't think we mentioned this earlier, which we should have, but we do have office hours on Discord on Wednesday. If you want to come hang out with me and Shrita and chat about what you're building, get help, ask questions, just hang out. The time is, I better make sure I know. It is at 10:30 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. So come hang out. All right, next up, we are, of course, it seems like we can't go a week without talking about Claude Code. So we're going to talk about Claude Code. Last week, they did announce they are adding some weekly rate limits if you're using the max plan. So, I jokingly blamed Tyler on our team because he said he would have spent $2,000, but only had to pay the $200. He would have spent $2,000 in 1 week, but only had to pay the $200 a month. And then the next day, Claude Code rolls out this new limits. So he will hit those limits for sure. But joking aside, seems like they said it only impacts, 5% of users that'll hit limits. So it doesn't impact a lot of other, most users that are on the max plan. But it sounds like, some people were really just letting Claude Code run wild, and it was costing them a lot of money. So,
dude, but I think what are y'all doing? and spend, like, what are you actually doing? Are you like inventing the future or something? Spending $2,000 or whatever?
Dude, Opus is expensive. I told you I spent $100 in a weekend on one session, you know?
Yeah, but like you're just doing some minor tasks, right? Like those don't cost $1,000. $100 is fine, let's just say. But like, what are you doing spending like thousands of dollars? Like, what could that task be? Is it like, what if it's like solving AGI? Like, it just starts doing that.
The
How much-
funny thing is, it would tell you it did it. You're like, oh yes, here it is. And then you say, oh, you did this wrong. It says, you're right. I did
You're
do it wrong.
I'm terribly sorry.
I'm terribly sorry. Here, let's do this other approach. Let's spend another $1,000.
You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right. I did it wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think Opus is very expensive, so I just use an API key because I didn't think I was going to spend $200 a month. I probably should just get the max plan, but I'm just using Opus, and obviously it's significantly more expensive. But I wasn't like, my session wasn't intense over the weekend to spend $100. I could have easily spent $200 or $300 if I was, I was doing some work, but I wasn't like heads down the entire weekend. You know what I mean? It didn't take that long to spend $100. So I don't know. I think Claude's pretty expensive, especially compared to other models.
Yeah.
It's obviously, I would say, slightly better for coding, and slightly better is kind of a big deal if you're writing code. So I think that's why everyone uses Claude. But I do think that over time, those other models are going to continue to catch up. So I don't know. Claude needs to fix some pricing issues, I think. I think it's still a little too expensive. But
or maybe like they got us hooked on the drugs, and now they're,
they can set the limit. Yeah, you're hooked.
And also, I hate that you can't get the same kind of like flat rate or type something with like just an API key. Like you're selling a max plan, but then what about all the money I have in my API credits or my API bank or whatever? Like I have to have a separate plan now. It's annoying. I mean, it's how you make money though. So hey.
Yeah. So yeah, Marcelo says Kimi K2 is too good. Haven't tried it, but heard good things about it as a coding model. We're going to talk about actually some of that stuff here a little bit later. I got a couple other comments. Justin says, we're just like replaying a conversation that's happening in real time in YouTube. So if you are watching this recording or listening to this recording later, you got to be here. But Justin says, Jalp templates, from what I understand, don't have to be crazy. Just an example on how to properly use Mastra. Maybe think utility use case instead of massive agent network. Agreed. Jelp says, true. I might just create a simple schema creator or something in my previous master project. I ran out of OpenAI credits, LOL. I was going to submit that, but it's way more complex. Well, Jelp, you should submit something, but we'll take whatever submissions. Yeah. But, and then Justin says, as we last one, and then I will stop. Yeah. I mean, my main reason is just to help others have their aha moment, and really even simple use case will help someone. Think what would help you jumpstart. Okay. So I just recapped a conversation happening in YouTube, which you can go check out yourself. You should be there. But
hashtag community.
Yeah. We do appreciate you having this conversation on the live show, because we're in this together, and templates are exactly that. We do appreciate complex use cases, but it doesn't have to be complex. A simple template that helps someone get started is a really good thing, because it allows more people to build agents, build workflows, get started quickly with Mastra. All right. So we have some more Claude code. We're not done with talking about Claude code here.
We never are.
So in this case, let's see this one. So Claude Code can now work across multiple directories in a single session. So you can add directory paths to add working directories. Before, it was limited to kind of just one directory. So you can have like it go across the front end or back end or a shared directory, as you can see in this video. So this was released, kind of last week on the 29th. Haven't used this yet, but I do use Claude Code quite a bit. So I imagine this is something I will use at some point. as a way to kind of like, especially in like mono repos, maybe just
Yeah.
like specify specific directories to work across. So that's cool. Anything on that? Nothing.
No, but it made me think that we should invite Matt back on because he just built an app without looking at the code, and he's a huge Claude Code user. Matt B, by the way. So that just made me think.
Yeah. Matt B from Netlify. Yeah.
He's a Claude Code maximalist, I guess. So, which is dope.
Yeah, he and it makes makes an appearance in our stream starter now. Did you see a new stream video that we got?
Yeah, dude, that was
Beginning the
sick.
stream. Yeah, he's in there. He's been a guest. He's a friend,
Yeah.
friend of the live stream. All right. So one other thing, if you want to be a Claude Code maximalist, there's a new video 4 days ago from Anthropic, Claude Code best practices. I watched a little bit of it. I think
I watched it.
10 minutes in is when the meat really starts, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. But go to the Anthropic YouTube channel, look for Claude Code best practices, and if you are trying to figure out how to get the best out of Claude Code, Anthropic, maybe not the team behind Claude Desktop, but the rest of Anthropic can tell you how to get Claude Code. That's an MCP joke. It's a bad one, but
yeah.
I
think it's funny.
But Claude Code best practices, learn how to get the best out of Claude Code. All right, next up, let's talk about AI Engineer World Fair. AI Engineers, is it conference, World Fair? I don't know, conference, whatever. AI Engineer Conference.
Which one though?
Yes. So first, we're going to talk about the last one because the author of this book, our co-founder, Sam, gave a talk at the last AI Engineer Conference in San Francisco. And that talk has finally been released. So you should go check it out. Agents versus Workflows, why not both? With Sam from Mastra, our co-founder. It's got 10,000 views in the last 3 days. Let's make it 20,000. Let's go out and, watch it. Let's learn. So wanted to talk about that. I think they released, I've seen a few other talks that they've also released on YouTube. So if you're looking to learn more and you weren't able to go to that conference, go check out the AI Engineer YouTube channel. You can probably find some good talks, learn some things. I'd recommend this one, of course, but there's others that are out there. Yeah,
there's like a workshop that is referenced in the comments here. Like AI engineers, like, hey, he mentioned the Mastra workshop, and then they linked it, so you can watch another Mastra video that happened, and we didn't even know about it at all until we were at the conference, which is cool.
And next up, continuing on talking about AI Engineer, there's another conference coming up, and Abby, you're going to be there, right?
I think I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there?
I think I'm going to be there. So if you're in, and Sam's going to be there, a couple other people from the Mastra team are going to be there. So you should, if you are in the area, you should come say hi. We will be around.
Yeah.
We'll give you a book. Come find us. And we will be there in mass. We'll have people there with us. So please come say hello. It's going to be a cool time. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm sure you will learn a lot.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. That's it. That's AI Engineer. That's that topic. All right. We got two more big news topics to talk about today. This one I can't say that I've really kept up with a ton, other than I just can't stop seeing mentions about like Chinese LLMs. Seems like they're literally everywhere, especially like open models. So a few kind of updates around just some of the Chinese models that are coming out that are kind of open weight models. The first is from ZAI. GLM 4.5, reasoning, coding, and agentic abilities. So here's it's just from the Z.ai blog post. And they introduce two models, 4.5 and 4.5 Air. They're kind of their flagship models. They have a comparison of performance on agentic reasoning and coding benchmarks. So they ran it across 12 benchmarks here. Oh. You can see where it performs. So as a model, it performs pretty well, right? Grok 4 just came out and was kind of state of the art in some things. They're saying O3 is still state of the art here by these specific benchmarks, and it's obviously pretty high performing, especially compared to some of the other models that are out there. And then it has like specific breakdowns on agentic benchmarks, reasoning benchmarks, and coding benchmarks. And you can see, like, as expected, Claude 4 Opus is still the best in coding, but some of these other ones are getting pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, Grok is still killing it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have a model that can perform like this is great.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know if it's great for us, but it's great in general.
I think it's great for just people building with AI in general. So it's, I don't know all the details, other than I've obviously just reading through the basics of this post, but there are many good models that have been coming out. It seems like, and this was July, it seemed like July was just like Chinese model month.
Yeah, dude, it was. I think every show we were talking about, a new model.
I'm going to be honest, like I can't, we do this stuff every day. I can't keep up with all the different companies, even like behind all these models. So it's been pretty impressive to see. They're on a kind of a tear. So somewhat related, this was just kind of an interesting blog post. So Cerebrus Code has launched. So there are 2 new plans to try to make AI coding faster and more accessible. Code Pro for $50 a month and Code Max. They give you Qwen 3 Coder, which is, at the time, the world's leading open weight coding model. I don't know, like, as of August 1st, they still say it is, but it runs at 2,000 tokens per second, which is really fast. So, and no limits. So it does, it's probably would be one of the fastest coding models.
Dang.
And you can see here how it, how they're saying, it relates. They all have this, similar graphic, right, on Sweetbench verified.
Yep.
So you can see how model size plus performance, it's pretty good, right? So I know Tyler on our team was pretty excited about it. I don't think he's tried it yet, but if you are looking for, if you want to get around the Claude Code limits, maybe you can give this thing a shot and see how it compares.
Dude, I think these models are going to have like they're going to have like their time in the dogfight, because it is getting really expensive, and people who know how to run models locally don't care. Like, they don't want to pay the price, right? So they're just going to do it themselves. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I do, the interesting thing too, if you look at, is they're getting higher performance with smaller models, right? They're able to still get high performance with potentially smaller models as they go. And so what I'm very interested to see when we can have, and it kind of already maybe exists with some of these models, but I think it needs to still get better, but like a local running model that isn't too resource intensive, that you can just run anywhere. And I know you can with some of these models, but I do think they're not quite as good yet, right? And maybe they'll always trail a little bit behind, but I do think there's still 1 or 2 iterations from being, what I feel like I get out of Claude Code today. But it is exciting that it feels like it's getting really close.
Yeah. But I think there's like maybe it's not like a knowledge gap, but maybe it's like maybe it's not so easy. In my opinion, it's super easy to use local models, right? You can use like LM Studio and just you're off to the races. But maybe it's because it's so much easier to just put an API key in that people don't reach out for the local models. Or like people have to navigate Hugging Face, which might be like scary to some people, But if you want to save money, like that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. For now, yeah, I think you're right. I will be interesting to see, how the price, it feels like there's going to be a lot of price pressure, right? There's just so many models. When you have this many competitors, there's a lot of downward price pressure. So we will see what happens, but I do think that over time, maybe and I don't even know how profitable some of these model companies are right now. You know, I think that's why Claude Code had to put in the limits, right? They were obviously thought they were losing money or not making enough margin. So it'd be interesting on all these open models that you can run yourself, how that like pushes, because you still gotta, if you want fast inference for some of these larger models, you need high powered GPUs, and that is still very expensive. Price is coming down, but it's still expensive to run.
Yeah, it's still hard to run it like on a MacBook, you know.
Yeah. And another related post. This one is from, you know, it feels like we feature one of Simon Willison's blog posts at least every other week.
Yep.
But, you know, this is from Simon Willison's blog, and he says that something that has become undeniable this month is that the best available open weight models now come from Chinese AI labs. And he talks about Kimi K2, Quen 3, GLM 4.5, and 4.5 Air, which we just mentioned. And it all happened in like 20 days in July. From the 11th of July to the 31st of July, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 model releases, according to this blog post.
Which is wild.
And it says the only one that's kind of has an interesting license is Kimi K2, which is using a non-OSI compliant modified MIT license. And they all offer their own APIs, and they're becoming more available from other providers. You know, we just showed like Cerebras is offering Quen 3 coder models for pretty cheap.
Yep. I think Fireworks AI also offers all these models too. So
yeah, it's becoming pretty interesting. So you don't even have to run them yourself, and you can still, take advantage of these models, and it's still likely, you verify this, but it's still likely cheaper. You know, I imagine it's still going to be cheaper.
Yeah, just Fireworks charging you a bunch of money. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying a little bit of a premium, right? That you don't have to run it yourself, but
it's fair.
Likely not as big of a premium as using one of the big providers.
If open source models become super popular, like it's only going to force the big models to release an open source model themselves, right? Which we've heard so much rumblings throughout the news, but we haven't seen it like manifest yet.
Last but not least, before we wrap up today, so Gemini 2.5 DeepThink is now available in the Gemini app. It only is available for Google AI Ultra subscribers. So you I think that's like the $250 a month subscription. I have it. I haven't tried DeepThink yet. I would be curious how it compares to, using O3 Pro or something like that.
Yeah.
But just another model improvement, right? They have 2.5 Flash, 2.5 Pro, and now 2.5 DeepThink.
I'm really impressed with Google's models, but I am so unimpressed with their integrations into their products. For example, you get Gemini and shit through Google Assistant, but that fool is shitty as Siri. Honestly, I'll say it. Like, yeah, it can answer stuff, but it can't actually do anything. You know, it's kind of whack. They're probably not fully featured or anything like that. But
yeah, I mean, it's hard to cross product boundaries, I think, right? When you're that big of a company. So
yeah.
So
But
they
then
build something cool in isolation, and then it's like, how do we actually like integrate in this with other products?
But it's like false advertising when they say like Google Assistant powered by Gemini, and you're like, yeah, dude, that sounds sick. Let me try it out. Doesn't work the same way, and you're like, oh my god, what is this shit?
Yeah.
But anyway,
or even like how bad of an experience it is to use VO3, which is awesome. Like it's really cool. Like I made a lot of really dumb, but also a lot of really fun videos with VO3. But you got to sign up for this plan, and then you got to go to Google Flow, which doesn't sound like VO3, but it's like a product that contains VO3, and it's kind of janky. It works, but doesn't work that well.
Yeah, there needs to be some UX and DX improvements across this.
Yeah,
because like Gemini is fucking powerful, dude. Like if I was anybody else and I had my own model, I'd be like, holy shit, where'd these guys come from? You know, like, and then but then, it's
especially
like
with
that puts them behind.
Yeah, especially with their the large context windows and and they kind of came, they caught up pretty quick, right? They're at least in the conversation, and for a while there, they definitely were not.
Yeah, Gemini. Only reason, like, dude, Gemini is such an interesting thing because it's a very short timeline. But Gemini impacted AI news with the context model, which then led us to say RAG is dead, right? Like, there is this whole thing going on, this narrative. So hopefully they get better.
So now this leads me, and this is an interactive question. So if you are listening, respond in the chat with what you think. So let's give a timeline. Let's say end of the year. Like let's say end of the year. Who do you think in best is going to be hard to judge because everyone has a different benchmark. But, we're not going to fact check this. What do you think is going to be rank these models at the end of the year? We have OpenAI, we have Anthropic, we have, XAI with Grok, we have Google. I'd say those are like the 4 big ones, right? And then we have open model. Like which one's going to be the top performing model? We'll call it the top performing general model. Where would you put your money on today? And if you're listening in the chat, where would you be putting your money if you were to bet?
Where are you putting your money?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I just thought of the question.
I know it's not Claude. Like, I know it's not Claude.
You're not betting on Claude, okay?
I'm not betting on Claude or OpenAI.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly think for me, it's like I don't think the open model is going to be ahead. I think it'll be surprisingly close. But I honestly think that at the end of the year, it's going to be Grok or Google. It's going to be XAI or it's going to be Google as the best model. That's my prediction. It's going to be one of those two I think OpenAI's got this hype around GPT-5. Maybe they surprise people. Maybe it comes out and maybe they're working on something. Yeah, it can't flop. Can't flop. But but I do think that it's going to be, if I were to place my money, I think it's going to be on XAI or Google. Probably Google.
Dude, I'm going to say Google. I'm going to put Gemini. That's my bet. I kind of hope GPT-5 flops. Not that I'm a hater. I just want to see what that will do to the world, because it'll change very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can go one of two ways, right? And I think if you're listening to this, you're like, you tell me in the chat what kind of, which way you lean. But I think there's like, either you think that AGI is imminent and it's nearly here meaning in the factor of within a year or two, it's here, and GPT-5 is going to be like basically it, or a huge step in that direction. And you think that the progress is accelerating. If you think the progress is accelerating, that's like one thing. If you think that we're hitting some kind of natural plateau of what these LLMs could do, that's like maybe you're like slightly decelerating, or like the progress is not increasing. Where are you on that spectrum? Or do you think the progress is continuing to accelerate, or do you think we're coming to some kind of natural plateau for at least some point in time? I'm not saying we're never going to get to AGI, but it might take longer than what the accelerationists are thinking.
So I think like in the big model, like the big boy league, progress is becoming like marginal, in the open model league, feels like the wild west, and things are, but then like you're comparing yourself to the big boys, but if you compare yourself to within your open models, there is like, these big, it feels good, right? It could be better than people, but then the big models are just inching each other out. So yeah, I think marginal though.
Yeah, I do think that I'm not saying we're going to hit a plateau, but I do think progress is slowing down, and maybe I will be wrong, and GPT-5 will, everyone can say I'm a hater and I did not predict the future accurately, but I do think it seems like it's slowing down a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but progress has started to, like, they're having to come up with new benchmarks, because, eventually it just knows all the facts and everything, but just because it knows all the facts and it can predict the next best token with a slightly higher percent accuracy, I think every 1% increase is a huge, gain. You can unlock a lot more things. And so I think that, as far as like progress, is incredible, but the big jumps, maybe, I think people like will downplay like, some of the marginal gains are actually huge when you unlock different types of agents that you couldn't build before. But I do think in general, like, I'm kind of on the we're slowing down a little bit. Maybe there'll be something that surprises us, but I'm betting against it right now, at least in the next 18 months.
Yeah.
Maybe beyond that, I can't predict anything. But so we have some people that are in the chat. So B French says Gemini 3.0 Pro. He thinks that's going to be the best. Marcelo says Gemini. B French says Gemini edges out Grok on API architecture alone.
Okay, interesting.
Justin says his rankings would be OpenAI. Okay, that's interesting. You're the only one so far, Justin, that thinks OpenAI is going to be the top. Then Gemini, then Anthropic, then some kind of open model with basically tied with XAI. And it is hard to say, like, what's defined best? Are we talking about coding? Are we talking about general tasks? Like, what benchmarks? Like, who knows? I'm just saying, as a feel.
Should we do March Madness for models? Dude. We'll sit on that idea for a bit.
Yeah. How do you make a tournament out of models? Yeah.
I don't know, but we can talk to Recall about that.
Yeah, we certainly can. All right, dude. This was one hell of a show.
Yeah.
We went 2 hours and 15 minutes. For those of you that joined us, whether you're watching this live right now or whether you are watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you're listening on your favorite podcast app, thank you for tuning in to AI Agents Hour or AI Agents 2 hours and 15 minutes this week. We talked about the Mastra Hackathon. Please go to mastra.build if you want to build a Mastra template. Come to our Discord and talk about it, and we will help you out. We talked with Vijay from Oso. We talked with Jeff from Confident AI. We talked with Annie from Smithery, and we did a whole bunch of AI news. Yeah. So it was a great show.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here, and you guys are awesome.
See ya.
See ya. Peace.